within the San Marcos River. My coworkers Colin and Chris did a talk at the statewide chapter or full statewide meeting in 2024. So you may, I don't know if y'all have listened to their talk out there. So it might be a little, I stole some of their slides, is what I'm saying. But anyway, if you listen to that, I'm hoping to kind of give a little bit of a different talk where I talk about the communities. I kind of discuss which plants have different types of structures and how that relates to full ecosystem management. So a little background on me. I have a Master of Aquatic Resources, which is just this blank generic term for whatever the hell aquatic I wanted to study. But I have a bachelor's in aquatic ecology, and then I moved on to do my master's degree. All of this is at Texas State University. There's me. If you recognize the face mask, you might guess when it was, but I was fermenting zebra mussels and kind of looking at their nutrient release into the water to see if that was an issue for Texas summers. Most of my research was in Canyon Lake, where I did a lot of scuba diving, looking at hydrilla and zebra mussels and counting lots of really small mussels. So I'm kind of an expert in two fields where I've studied aquatic plants, but also a lot of invasive mussels. And then I also get to play with native mussels sometimes too, which I really like those guys. But there's me that was last year in Canyon Lake. So I'm still getting to do the scuba diving, which is pretty fun. I'm also a hand model. I modeled zebra mussels there, and that was upstream in Canyon Lake. One of the sites that we studied, also with Texas wild rice, invasive hydrilla, and modeling another invasive plant, watercress, which you may have eaten before on some tacos. So I'll just kind of preface with aquatic systems. I just kind of wanted to review how they were a little different than terrestrial systems. And one of the main things you might guess is water. We have that 3D space in which everything sort of touches and interacts with each other. And so when we think about a community in space, we kind of think about every little component kind of touching each other and interacting through that 3D water space. So aquatic systems are pretty much anywhere within a watershed or marine, coastal. For the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to mostly talk about inland water. But when we discuss what's going on, a lot of times it matters how much flow is in the environment. So the directionality of that 3D space flowing means that we always have kind of this pressure on the plants, the animals, everything, and the adaptation of the entire ecosystem is based on how much flow is in that particular location. And so Canyon Lake here, for the most part, is a lentic system. And so what that means is that it has very low flow environment, and it takes a very long time from when a water molecule enters that system for when it leaves out through the other side. Versus if you think about the Guadalupe River, downstream of that dam, that flow is moving really fast. And so we would kind of transition to a Lorovic system right at the dam, moving further down. Because of this like interconnectivity, every time that there's a major disturbance in the system, it kind of has really widespread rippling effects and doesn't just affect one small thing. So if you think about a little bit of pollution going into a river, it's going to really have a lot of downstream effects, and it's really difficult to study those things. The other part about aquatic systems is that they are in high demand because we all require water, all the cities, all the people, and then also everything within that river system requires water. So that human demand is really fast. They can draw out those resources really quickly, and it again causes a lot of stress. So with that backdrop, I'm going to primarily talk about the San Marcos River because it's my favorite. And it's where I do majority of the work on my team and everyone I work with. So this river and the Comel, they're like sister springs that come out of Edwards Aquifer. The San Marcos system, just like the Comel, is kind of an urbanized environment upstream. If you can see that kind of top location on the map, that's Spring Lake, and during high flows, the springs will bubble out just like that. Right now, I'd say there's about 20% of the bubbles just because we're in an extended drought and there's just a lot less flow pushing up out of the aquifer. If you take the glass bottom boat tour, you will be able to see some of these springs straight in the glass. The river is always 72 degrees and it's always flowing as far as we can recall. So over 10,000 years, this river has been persistently flowing, and there's a lot of invested folks that are keeping it that way. And this hydrology of the river really supports pretty unique habitats. As with any other spring system, if you travel across the country, this hydrology is unique, and so all of the species within that are introduced are really adapted for that very particular environment. And so the thing with unique systems is that those organisms tend to not live everywhere else, and so as these waters become more rare, it puts a lot of stress on the species within, and that's why we have quite a few very unique, threatened, and right now 7 federally endangered species within the entire system. There's over 16 species of plants. What do I have here? I have Lorovic and wild rice at the top in this like more urban reach, and then further down on the screen I have Texas wild rice, which is, you know, I just gotta put in, you're gonna see a lot of pictures of that plant. So I do want to preface as well, most of the work that my team does under the Habitat Conservation Plan, and what those are major pieces of bureaucratic plans that allow for industry to continue development. In this case, it allows for the pumping of water, and it allows for people to access the river while mitigating the damage that's being done to endangered species. And so these are huge agreements with lots of stakeholders. They look like very different things. I don't know, there's several within Texas, just in this area, like the Balcones Canyonlands Conservation Plan near Austin. There's a San Antonio Conservation Plan as well that's with an electric company. So they all look very different. This one is a water HCP. And with regards to the San Marcos River, there's several mitigation objectives that we work under, which is controlling non-natives, enhancing Texas wild rice, and then managing floating vegetation. So Texas wild rice is aquatic perennial grass. It is only found in the San Marcos River. It is pretty widespread now. As of 2024, we had a coverage in the river of almost 12,000 meters. But when we started the HCP in 2013, there was less than 5,000 meters. And those were really limited to the very upstream portions. So we've been able to restore this plant's access to the rest of the river, really spend a lot of time on educating people. And this has helped us like already achieve this long-term objective. Yep.
It's kind of absurd. I'm a student at Texas State now.
You're good.
And in Sewell Park in particular, that part of the river, it's absurd how many people go in there and how much Texas wild rice there is.
Yeah, there's a lot there. If you go in front of the Lions Club, we've been able to help coax that whole reach into being almost Texas wild rice. So
it's absurd. It's where you see people kayaking along it and all swimming in it as well.
Like most grasses, it's a very resilient plant, and so if we give Texas wild rice the space, it really expands quickly and recovers. I think almost even like terrestrial grass. If you can see, we have the asterisk in 2021. Well, they closed down part of the upper reaches in 2021, and the wild rice, as you can see, just like exploded and just grew bank to bank because there weren't people treading away the regrowth and the lateral vegetative growth that happens with the stands.
Related to the Minnesota wild rice?
Yes, they are. So it's hypothesized that during the last glacier maximum, the glaciers were all the way down in this area, and as they receded, the climate changed, and there were only wild rice in very few systems in this area, and because of the very controlled conditions in the cool water of the San Marcos Springs, it was able to sustain there when the rice died out in all of the other rivers. That's a hypothesis. Someone could have brought it here too. I don't know. There's also, if you can figure out this biogeography issue, there is a species of rice that's related that's in Hawaii. So I'm not sure kind of how it got over there. that duck must have had to fly pretty far. So I'm just going to discuss a few of my favorite species here in the river. Most of them are going to be obligate to wetland or submerged floating aquatic species. So pondweed, curly leaf pondweed grows pretty extensively in the river during high flow times, but we've seen it kind of reduce. It's a long pondweed. So it grows out from a long stem, and then it has these curly leaves that come up, and it grows really bushy. It's very good fish habitat. We have hornwort that grows in more slack water environments. It sustains really well in the lake. As you can see this picture of me again, I just want to say on the left of that, those are giant, basically like bushes of hornwort. And so they don't actually root, they just kind of submerge and settle on the bottom, and then they grow upwards. Like most aquatic plants, they have gas producing cells within the upper portions of their stems, and so those kind of help keep the stems upright. And then on the right here we have kabamba. Kabamba is a high quality habitat for a lot of native species, and so we that one is also in this picture right in front of me. It can grow about 10 feet tall and is from singular stalks that just grow laterally. So it's very beautiful.
Deep is the same.
Right now, not very deep. Those are mostly found in Spring Lake. That's where I am right here. And the deepest part of Spring Lake is about 22 feet right now. So 22 to 26 feet, depending on what the flows are. Yep.
I've noticed the one time I did go to Spring Lake, a lot of raptors flying around. Do you know what kind of raptors seem to have made home there?
Vultures. So there's a lot of turkey vultures there. It's just a really stable environment for them. Yeah, they like to roost in the trees around the lake. It's very well protected. And also during times like this when it's cold, the stable temperature of the water keeps like a microclimate, and so it kind of buffers the cold for those birds. I like to call them the cleanup crew. We almost never see any dead turtles or anything around the lake because they get to them. So
Great in every respect. They help take care of roadkill too.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Marion Stachny's, she says as a river ranger, I monitor the Rio Vista Island section of the river. As of 2021, I noticed the river bottom is now bare, whereas before it was covered by all kinds of aquatic plants. Is there a plan to restore those plants?
In the reach just above Rio Vista, we consider that fully restored. There's a portion of the river left. So if you're looking downstream, the left side right in front of Ivars is fully vegetated. But on the right, unfortunately, it's so shallow that people tread on it. And so we are just planning on keeping it like non-native free and letting native communities come in and recede, as human foot traffic allows them to persist. So we really focus on maintaining the areas where people don't travel and really trying to build up like a robust community in those locations, and then allow for people to recreate in more of like the busy zones like Rio Vista. If they're interested in coming out with us to some of the more remote areas of the river, we can show them where we've really helped build up a beautiful, stable community. I'll show a few pictures later of what that restoration looks like too. Here, I'm just going to talk about a few of the more dynamic plants. So we have a lot of species that have submerged forms, and then they also have forms that persist out on the banks, so out of the water as well. On the left, we have Sagittaria latifolia, or arrowhead. Its emergent form in shallow water is that arrowhead form. Looks just like a classic arrowhead with a single multiple flower that comes out from a plant. But the submerged form does not flower, and it kind of has these like blade-like elongated leaves that come from a central stalk. Pennywort is my favorite, so I had to include it, but it's a native plant that basically like comes out of a long stolon, and then there are single stalks that have that circular leaf on it. And so underwater, it kind of grows in these wonderful mats around all the rocks. But then it's also very resistant and grows up on the banks as well in shady habitats. Lewigia, if you ever do a float of the San Marcos River, you will see it everywhere. It is in the submerged form. It's got a very red leaf, but it also will survive when it's dewatered, and it kind of has this more waxy leaf form that turns green on the top. So we also have a lot of mosses and small plants within this river. Some of them are noxious and more lentic or slow-moving systems, but in a faster-moving river, they just add to the plant diversity. Riccia fluitans is a floating moss. In recent slow river conditions, it has been kind of growing very extensively and forms these giant floating mats on the river. But it also has a submerged form where it will sit on the bottom. It's very, very good habitat for small macroinvertebrates, and then also the endangered fish. So We also have duckweed. My wetlands plant professor, Dr. Martinez, would say you could put duckweed in a cup and call it a wetland. But I like it. It definitely is good food for a lot of small animals and provides good habitat. And I just think that really promoting diversity within the system is great. I know that a lot of people try to control zola and small ponds, but again, in a river system, it's not really an issue, and it's pretty. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the animals. We have several endangered and threatened organisms that call this river home. And so just bringing them up is important. They declared Gambusia, the San Marcos Gambusia, extinct recently. And so this kind of fate could happen to other endangered or rare fishes of the system if we don't take more precaution to protect their habitat. Most of the work that we do in the river is related to the fountain darter. Unfortunately, people who foot the bill tend to want to protect vertebrates. And as plant people, you know, we get a little cautious about that. But this species is really responsible for really pushing everyone to give full protection to the entire community of the river. And so doing the most that we can to protect its habitat is also protecting all of these other organisms in the plant community. And so a lot of the things we do are for the fountain darter. And then subterranean, we have a blind salamander. If you go looking for them, you're not going to find them. They're in the groundwater. You might see one in the aquarium at Spring Lake. I don't know if they currently have one, but I can let you know if you email me. San Marcos salamanders are found throughout the Spring Lake and then also in the headwaters areas. They're a cute little animal, but they require bare substrates. They really aren't found that often in plants. San Marcos really likes to make the blind salamander their mascot, and so you'll see blind salamander bars and blind salamander drains, and I just think it's really good public awareness, although we're working on Texas wild rice. So there are some mascots floating around there for plants that we're excited about. But yeah, I'm going to move on a little bit to non-native plants. You've probably heard of this one. There's a lake right there that's full of it. Hydrilla was introduced to the area in the 1960s, and this is a primary plant that has been removed for the restoration on the San Marcos River. It is pretty disruptive to the systems. It can alter the water chemistry, alter the soil chemistry of the sediments. It disrupts habitat, and it's extremely fast growing. Like if it has perfect conditions, it'll grow a centimeter a day. So if you think about all those stems, they just fill the water column, and it really just completely blocks out any sort of resistance from the native community. Yeah.
How did you get it out of the river?
I'll be getting there, but we got it out by hand. So here's a couple of others that are big targets for us. Hygrophila polysperma is the second worst offender. It's South Indian swampweed. This one says swampweed. We've also been having trouble with limnophila, and these are the submerged species. And then we also have Eurasian water milfoil on the lake. That species is particularly horrible in the northern U.S., but we've been keeping an eye on it. It seems like our native milfoils are good at competing with it, but we're vigilant. And then we have floating non-natives, which are like the bane of my existence. We have ceratopters here, water sprite, watercress. If you're ever hungry, go out to the lake or go out to the river and look for some water lettuce, and then water hyacinth. A lot of these species were all brought here through aquarium dumping. They're really popular plants for people to have in aquariums. I don't know. I would assume. I think it spread regionally. So I think it was introduced in Florida and it just kind of radiated. So I'm not sure. And it was a controlled species even before it reached Texas. So here's just kind of a list. I thought I might share the slides. So I included this. It's not complete, but we have quite a bit of diversity and not too many invasives. So a lot of these species just kind of add to the ecological diversity of the system. So to control these non-natives and to build out a robust native community, we consider multiple methods, but ultimately we cannot use chemical or biological methods because of the presence of so many sensitive endangered species within the system. So like typical control would be using weevils or like they did up in Austin using grass carp, but I can't imagine how fast they'd eat all that wild rice if we've got grass carp in that river. So chemicals are the typical control. Yep.
Excuse me, grass carps, are these sterile grass carps?
That's the only legal ones that they can use are the triploid. So they're basically sterile males. And they will put them, I think, in Lake LBJ. They've used them to control plants. So I don't think that they eat hydrilla very well, but they do eat some of the other invasives that they have up there. Not my favorite method because it's just really devastating and you can't control. But again, if you're thinking about such a large space like Lake LVJ, you have to use different methods. They don't have the endangered fishes or salamanders that would be probably severely damaged from that. So chemical. Oh.
So carp are very long lived?
I don't think so. I think maybe 5 years is what I've read, but don't quote me on that. If you inquire further, I can send information about that later this week. Chemical means are usually what's used to control invasive plants, but again, like most small-bodied fishes are very sensitive to chemicals, and so we just really can't use that. And there's usually legacy effects, so long-term removal of that chemical from the system that takes a while. So we're left with mechanical and physical. We do use mechanical harvesting methods in the lake. We use that to control the native hornwort that kind of grows out of control because the lake is dammed. It's not a natural system. And so even native plants can kind of get a little crazy. So we use that to help keep the spring heads clear and to keep it a nice flowing environment for all the species up there.
Who funds that?
The Edwards Aquifer Conservation Plan does fund that. And then portions of that funding as well come from Texas state facilities. And so most of all of the restoration that's happened within the river has been physical manipulation, so hand removal. We use scuba, wading, snorkeling, paddleboarding, whatever we can do to target those invasives and get them out by hand. I have a couple little videos here. This is us removing hydrilla in like 2018. So not me, but my team. This is like what we call bulk. So we just get in there and get as much of the physical vegetation out as possible. And so my coworker Chris here is using scuba to pull that. And then I see that after we do that bulk removal, then time after time we revisit that same site and we remove the little propagules from the water. So that's so satisfying when you see the little bean come out of the tuber off of the plant. Sometimes they get stuck and I'm like, but we just kind of scoop away the surface and then try and get as much of the little vegetation. So we've covered almost 3 river miles using those same methods, all the way down from the dam at Spring Lake to the confluence of the I-35 is where we're working right now.
How deep are the plant roots?
Hydrilla can be like there he's removing, but we could have already removed a good 8 inches of sediment to get to that point. So it can be almost a foot down into the sediments. I think it just depends on how rocky it is. So it could get down into those crevices. This is a good question. So to do this work, and what the HCP does is allows us to go in and manipulate habitat, but it does take away habitat temporarily from the endangered species, like the fountain darter up in the corner there. And so we call this incidental take. And there's take assigned to all kinds of activities, like the city of San Marcos applies for take for all of the people that come and access the river, and only so much is allowed. And so our activities, as permittees of the system, we calculate take for everything that we're doing, and then that goes into an estimate of how much work we are allowed to accomplish each year, if that makes sense. Did you have a question, Michael?
No, I was just scratching my head.
Oh, okay. Okay. I want to get to like how we think about the plant community as ecologists and like what that means for our turnaround and like restoring the community. And so we kind of break up these type of plants into 2 different things. We have simple plants like the Sagittaria or the Texas wild rice. As you can see, they're very simple leaves. They kind of form these like bundles towards the sediment. And then we have complex plants, and complex plants are super important habitat for the fountain darters. And so we want to have a robust endangered Texas wild rice community, but we have to balance that and mitigate it with complex. And so a lot of the non-natives we have are complex, like hydrilla and hygrophila. And what we do is try and replace those when we remove them with some rice and then a lot of complex natives. So if you can see, hygrophila leaf structure is very similar to Lewiggia. And so there's a lot of Lewiggia in the river because it's a very great fountain darter habitat and it likes high flow. We also replace complexes like hydrilla that will grow in slackwater places with kabamba. And kabamba is kind of a slower moving. So we get to kind of balance those slow moving habitats with kabamba, those faster moving habitats with Lewiggia, and still kind of create this great environment for native fish. This is a box plot. It basically shows, if you can see on the far left, that like kabamba is really good habitat, and it's been shown that we find more darters in kabamba than we do in, let's say, Texas wild rice over here on the far right. And other native plants also kind of support, like hygrophila supports kabamba, but we don't want that around. So we would rather have Lewiggia, and a similar amount of fountain darters are found in Lewiggia. So, oh, yep. Want me to go back?
No, maybe you're about to come to it. Where do you get the plants
that you do the replacement?
We get them all from the river. So we will go to really high quality habitat, very robust growing patches, and we'll take cuttings or sometimes uproot depending on what type of plant it is. And then I'm about to get to it. So we take those and either we plant the cuttings directly in the sediment or we bring them to our aquaculture location at Texas State University. So near the river, there was an old fish hatchery, and all that old infrastructure is still there. And so the university uses portions of it to conduct experiments, but also they have invested in letting us use it as a plant nursery. And so at any given time, we have 400 to 4,500 pots within that nursery, and we plant cuttings and then we grow those out into like really high quality root structured plants that are going to be resistant to dieback once we plant them in the river. Yeah, here's an example. Right now we can't use this method, but when high flow periods happen, we plant full pots like that, and that's exactly. So this guy's scuba diving here. He dug out a big hole within the sediment, and then he's planting the Texas wild rice.
Is Texas wild rice obviously for consumption?
It is not. No, it's not legal to either because it's endangered. But it doesn't grow. It doesn't produce seed unless it's under stress. So low flow marginal habitats in the river will stress the plant out a little bit, and then it'll produce seed. But majority of the rice that we have is more clonal, and so it just forms these long rice plants and does vegetative reproduction. Another thing that we have to do to protect these native communities is we have to remove vegetation mats. So I have more videos. This is an old method. When flows were high, we would remove vegetation mats from the surface of the Texas wild rice to protect it from being shaded out and dying back. This is just a product of the fact that we have a dam upstream. So historically, there wouldn't be too much vegetation floating down, but because we have a lake environment and that hornwort needs harvested and gets out of control, floats downstream and it gets caught on the wild rice and shades it out. In addition, people killing plants by walking in the river in the summer also releases a lot of vegetation mats. So we come in every week and we push veg mats off of all of the plants, typically wild rice, but we kind of stretch it and protect everybody else too. And then I think I have a picture. Now we mostly will push it off into the water column, and then it just floats downstream, and some of it gets stuck above larger dams, like what's the one below the confluence? Anyway, it kind of settles out in some of the more slack water regions lower, or I mean, presumably goes down to the Gulf of Mexico. So yeah, that's kind of a really important aspect of community maintenance and protection of these species.
Kind of around Sewell, closer to the road. Where it seems like a tree is growing in the water.
Oh, I don't know which area you're talking about.
It's around Sewell Park, kind of between
like the last bridge down.
It's the part of the road that goes over the river.
Oh, okay. We've had some issues with sediment coming down the creek there.
It looks like either a tree has rooted itself, because I noticed it looked like almost a little island being built up.
Oh,
by
yeah.
storms.
We've done a little bit of control last fall on that, so I don't know if you've been over there recently, but there was a tree growing in the water channel in Sewell Park, and we worked with facilities and got that tree out of there, and then we cut back some of the cut grass. Oh. We cut back some of the grasses that grew there and got more flow to the area, so maybe that's what you're thinking of.
It might have.
This is like an aerial. So our team collects aerial imagery every year of the river. And what's so cool is the water is very clear in this system. So we get like a good chance to see the fruit of our labor. This area is kind of midway downriver between the dam and I-35. The picture on the left is bank-to-bank hydrilla, bottom to top of the water. And this is after we did that bulk removal in the middle. I don't know if you can see the year, but that would have been in 2021. So 1 year later, we're letting it kind of recover and giving us a chance to get all those little root balls out. And then we then come in and did a lot of planting. So there's two things that work really well with us, where we've restored upstream, and all those propagules of the plants then are able to float down and naturally colonize. And then we supplement that with plantings. You can see some on the right here in that middle image. And then over time, given the right conditions, they really grow out into these beautiful communities. And we try and balance, again, that complex and simple vegetation. And it's pretty. I love this picture. So this is maybe one of the zones you're talking about. It's just below Sewell Park. So all of this field right here is water sprite. You can see a little bit of Sagittaria kind of in the center. But in 2020, the end of 2023, when flow started to drop and the drought was getting really serious, we had a big issue pop up in this reach. And I mean, I started this job then and I was like, there's no way. Like, this is crazy. What did I get myself into? Like, we have to remove all that by hand, which we did, a combination of removal, natural flow pulses, and moving down really helped us control it. And over the course of a couple years, we were able to convert this entire area. I kind of did that little time lapse there into a more robust community. So in the front here, we have Lorovic and Bacopa, and the Sagittaria patch really expanded. And then closer to the river, we have wild rice that's all seeding over there near the main channel. So
I do know that spot actually, because great blue herons and great egrets love fishing.
They do. It's a good spot for bird watching. Yep. And then if we move on, this picture was taken a few months ago. You know, as the drought has continued to expand, we see the riparian zone kind of shrink the river channel. And so we're getting a lot of grasses. They're native. Not a lot we can kind of do about it. Just hope maybe flows go up at some point and this area is able to convert back to more water-loving plants. This crazy graph, I just wanted to put this up here because it really kind of highlights like the success of us being able to increase the biodiversity of the plant communities, which was a goal of the HCP. And so if you can see the big blue bar on the left from 2013 is hydrilla. And if you follow any of these ribbons across, we converted a sizable chunk of hydrilla to Texas wild rice, this purple Ziz bar here. We also, some of it maintained hydrilla, but then that hydrilla, if we move closer to 2023, that again converted to Texas wild rice or Kabamba or any of these other native vegetation types. And so it's kind of a messy graph, but it really just kind of shows that over this 10-year block, we were really able to convert a lot of the non-native plants in their zones and regions of the river into regions that had native plants. So let me see. If you follow the green bar here, that's hygrophila, and then some of that converted to Texas wild rice and then remained Texas wild rice. So one of the issues that we have, I think, now that we're in the latter part of this main restoration, we're looking towards maintaining these communities. We've got rid of almost all the hygrophila in the river, or hydrilla. We're working on getting rid of almost all the hygrophila. And so we really need to kind of pivot our focus towards a more like maintenance level kind of management of the system. And so like we of course want to protect Texas wild rice, also because we're plant people and we love the wild rice, but we know that that balance needs to happen with the fountain darter. And I think that balancing fountain darter and Texas wild rice population success has been done so far. We have all those complex vegetation too that's doing really well. But the third animal that we're like pretty worried about is the San Marcos salamander, and it's been struggling because it really likes some high quality water, spring heads, flow environment. And with the success of our native communities expanding and growing so well in the river, it kind of means that they're covering some of those like blank substrate areas. So salamanders do not like to be walked on, and they don't really like plants either. And so we're now having to focus on areas of the river that maybe need more fine-tooth comb, where we're pushing back the vegetation some to create that great habitat for salamander, and then making sure it's a mix of wild rice and complex veg for fountain darters. So what this looks like is maybe something like this, minus the bats though. Bats really like to eat salamanders. But you know, see, we have like a really like nice community complex balance with rocky areas, or maybe something like this where we have the simple and complex, and then some patchy open substrates that would be good for a small salamander community. And so these are the kind of things that we're looking at now, and we have a privilege of looking at. We're no longer bulk removing hydrilla, so we get to really get our hands down there and manage. And so
the areas that you'll see like along the roads and stuff, or when you're walking in the forests, and there's those large areas where it's just kind of rock shelf. So it's just large slabs of limestone, gravel on top of it, where there's no plants really growing.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. You'll have to explain more to me. I'm definitely not well learned on terrestrial communities. I've had my head in the water too much, but I'd be really interested to learn a lot more about some of the karst plant communities and what those disturbed areas kind of look like. There's me again swimming. But when I'm talking about balancing species, it's really only in very specific zones. I think that like with any headwater system, it's important for us to focus on the headwaters area, because the most upstream should be the most high quality habitat. And the Edwards Aquifer Habitat Conservation Plan is a 15-year permit, and so they're going to be renewing it in 2 years, and they're working on plans to do that right now. And so we are kind of putting together recommendations for the renewal process. And this is one of the main focuses we see moving forward. I don't think it would have ever been in sight when they saw a river full of hydrilla. So it's a very different direction than anyone could have imagined in 2013. Yeah.
So on the Guadalupe here, I see a lot of like elephant ear, for example. Is it helpful to report those kind of invasives, or groups like the EAHCP kind of zoned in on their priorities?
They do have, I'm not sure about in the Comau, but they do have a contractor that comes and uses a certain, I don't remember which type of chemical, but he uses chemical treatment that is sticky and only sits on the leaves. And that is pretty effective at killing back elephant ear. I think that could report it to the EAHCP if it's on the Comau or on the San Marcos. And then they'll let their contractor know and they can decide whether it's in their zone or not. The other side, I was going to kind of mention it too, but initiatives like that, sometimes local groups can get involved with the control of those things. I know the San Marcos River Foundation does a lot for working with the permits that we already have, bringing in biologists, and then also being able to tackle those type of problems. So it's not directly under the Edwards Aquifer Habitat Conservation Plan, but I know that they have made huge strides in controlling water hyacinth down closer to the dam in the San Marcos system. And so similar initiatives could probably, you get the right person that's going to apply for grants and kind of manage that, then those smaller projects can really be effective.
I was just gonna add that I believe there's a invasive species BioBlitz coming up. Like
Yeah,
in
this
the-
weekend.
Yeah, in the bucket. So I guess that's another conduit, another way to get those things reported.
Yeah, that's a good way. Even if you can't use methods or at those BioBlitzes, at least you're like mapping it and getting that info to the right people. Just like the first step. I know like Arundo is so hard to control without chemical means. And so like control of that species definitely kind of has to get handed over to someone who's going to apply chemical methods of removal.
I was just talking about that earlier, like at the start of this meeting.
Oh, yeah.
There's been success seen, like a 22% biomass reduction in an area of the Rio Grande over 7 years by introducing a specific species of wasp and a specific scale insect that only attacks Arundo.
Oh, okay.
And in addition to that, using topping also helps, where you time the insect releases and the topping so that they'll kind of work together to reduce the Arundo numbers.
Okay. I know that similar methods have been used for Typha. So I'll just keep on going quick because I think I'm taking too much time. But there's a lot of initiatives, like speaking of multiple projects, like even our team is along with contractors for the HCP, we've developed side projects because not every single project covers all the problems that arise. And so like this project Waves here was funded by the university, and it uses environmental fees from tuition. And we were able to control the water sprite really with supplemental funding here. But there's all kinds of resources, philanthropists and groups that are willing to fund small projects or other things. Those are really what make these things so successful, because it's never just one project. It's always a large group of people contributing to the overall outcome. Yeah, and we use a large group of volunteers. We balance our like highly trained student technicians that get valuable fieldwork experience. They also present this research. They go off to conferences and stuff. But then we have a big group of volunteers that love to come out with us. And we work with the River Foundation to do a lot of like pop-up projects. like this one here was a year and a half ago. We had like a hyacinth pop up. No one had seen it in like 2 years, and then it was there again, growing in the middle of a bunch of typha. And so we kind of organized some volunteers, went out and tackled it, and then followed up with our technicians and maintained it. And it's been at bay. We haven't found a propagule in a while. So, yeah, so we will be putting up volunteer opportunities in the next few months. Michael has been out with us a few times. He was awesome. Did you help us plant too, or?
No, I haven't done that.
We'll be doing some more planting soon. So,
It's a lot of fun.
yeah, it's pretty fun, and you don't even have to scuba or anything because the water is so clear in so many of these shallow parts that we're working that you just see through it and remove the invasives. So we're all grant funded on our team, so it does create quite a few challenges, but y'all know about fundraising, so I'll skip that part. Yeah, if you have further questions, please let me know. That QR code goes to our website, and there's on top of all of this restoration work that we do, like my team is involved in research of invasive catfish. We do a lot of GIS type projects and working with sediment. So it's information about all those type of things are on our website as well. And then I forgot to put my email up there. Ask me for my email if you would like it. I can help you with anything you need. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's interesting that you guys were successful with the water hives and in that one particular spot there, because my experience is it just grows so fast.
Yeah.
How does that compare with another invasive that I'm familiar with, is the water lettuce, which seems to overnight just double? You know?
Yeah, it does. And that water lettuce will get stuck under. So if you have like nufar or anything, it'll like stick underneath things, and they're so small that they just grow out. But really just repeated treatments. So you can get out there once a week and get the bulk of it out. You'll get the eye to kind of pick out any small little growth, and then you can eventually just have patience, and eventually you won't find any anymore. So our team, because we have all these projects, we do a lot of like mapping our efforts and recording everything. And one of the challenges we've had is what happens when you go out and you don't find anything. So we still map our